On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur bound for Beijing with 239 people aboard. The Boeing 777-200ER lifted into calm skies shortly after midnight. The flight crew was experienced, weather conditions were stable, and the aircraft had no known mechanical issues. Nothing in those first minutes suggested the flight would become one of aviation's greatest mysteries. For roughly 40 minutes, MH370 followed its planned route northeast over the South China Sea. At 1:21 a.m., however, something unusual occurred. The plane's transponder, which continuously broadcasts altitude and position, went silent. No distress call was made. The cockpit did not report mechanical problems or smoke. Communication ended abruptly, with no explanation. Malaysian military radar detected MH370 veering sharply westward, turning back across the peninsula as if attempting to return to Kuala Lumpur. The maneuver appeared controlled, not chaotic. The aircraft then continued west and later north toward the Andaman Sea, before leaving radar range entirely. Search teams initially focused on the South China Sea, assuming mechanical failure caused the jet to descend near its expected route. But as days passed with no floating debris, investigators widened the search. It soon became clear that nothing about this disappearance was conventional. If the aircraft had suffered catastrophic structural damage, there would have been immediate communication attempts and floating wreckage. Satellite analysis revealed something unexpected. MH370 had continued flying for up to 7 additional hours after the transponder went silent. Even after communications ceased, the aircraft exchanged automated handshakes with a commercial satellite network. These signals did not reveal exact coordinates, but they proved the aircraft remained airborne long after radar contact was lost. Flight path modeling indicated MH370 likely continued south into the open Indian Ocean until fuel exhaustion. The aircraft then descended into one of the most remote stretches of ocean on Earth, an area with extraordinary depth, unpredictable currents, and no surface witnesses. Hope turned to confusion as the scale of the search began to grow. Naval vessels, aircraft, drift models, sonar scans, acoustic mapping, and underwater drones scoured vast distances. Every new lead seemed promising, then dissolved into empty ocean. Investigators considered numerous possibilities. A catastrophic electrical failure seemed unlikely. The aircraft would not maintain altitude and controlled direction for many hours. A rapid cabin depressurization could turn the plane into a ghost flight, but this did not fully explain the controlled turns early in the event. A hijacking scenario failed to match any ransom, ideology, or claim of responsibility. Nothing fit completely. In July 2015, a wing flaperon from MH370 washed ashore on Reunion Island, thousands of miles from the initial search region. Additional debris later appeared in Madagascar, Mozambique, and coastal areas along the western Indian Ocean. Identified fragments were conclusively tied to MH370 by serial number. The debris confirmed that the aircraft ended in the Indian Ocean, yet the wreck site remained undiscovered. This scattering of fragments supported long-term drift models. Currents in the southern Indian Ocean can transport floating debris over thousands of miles across months and years, which explained the delay in discovery. But these findings deepened the mystery rather than solving it. Commercial airliners rarely vanish without a trace. When problems occur mid-flight, cockpit transmissions almost always include distress calls, emergency codes, or requests for diversion. Yet MH370 offered silence. Total silence. The absence of communication raised 2 major questions. First, why did the flight crew not report trouble? Second, why was the transponder disabled before any sign of emergency? Transponders do not fail silently. Disabling them requires manual action or electrical interruption. Investigators evaluated the possibility that a pilot intentionally changed course. A controlled diversion would explain the turns across the Malayan Peninsula. One theory proposes that deliberate depressurization incapacitated passengers and crew, leaving a single controlling individual at the helm until fuel exhaustion. But if a pilot intended suicide, why fly for 7 more hours into the ocean? Why take the aircraft hundreds of miles off course? Another theory suggested the possibility of cargo-based fire. Lithium-ion batteries were on board, and battery ignition can produce smoke without immediate explosion. But cockpit smoke generally prompts rapid communication. No crew would remain silent in such a situation for hours. Technical malfunction also failed to explain the reconnecting satellite pings. The aircraft remained powered and stable long into the night. MH370 flew with intention. Some independent analysts focused on known 707 failure modes: electrical bus isolation, avionics smoke, and fire suppression procedures. They researched whether a cascading systems failure might disable communication while leaving autopilot active. But this would not explain the controlled directional turns shortly after the transponder shut off. Normal autopilot would not perform those maneuvers without cockpit input. At the same time, sabotage was extensively considered but produced no convincing leads. No evidence linked passengers to extremist motives. No stolen passports corresponded with known terror operatives. No extremist organization claimed responsibility, which is unusual for a high-profile disappearance. The sonar search for wreckage eventually reached enormous cost, more than $150 million, making it the most expensive aviation search in history. Shipborne sonar scanned deep trenches, underwater ridges, and vast plains where the seabed descends beyond 15,000 feet. The Indian Ocean floor in those latitudes is among the least explored regions on Earth. Mountains, fissures, and trenches can easily conceal debris fields. Years later, statistical analyses suggested multiple possible final descent paths, each based on fuel load, altitude, drift aerodynamics, and automated satellite handshake timing. Precision improved, but remained uncertain. Oceanographers recommended renewed search in a corridor southwest of Western Australia, where drift analysis, autopilot patterns, and computational models align. Despite high confidence, no definitive wreck site has ever been located. The tragedy of MH370 extends beyond technical mystery. Families of passengers endured years of uncertainty, lacking closure and physical memorial. Human absence is more painful when no material explanation exists. International aviation authorities faced criticism regarding communication gaps, satellite tracking policies, emergency procedures, and real-time position monitoring. As a result, major airlines eventually adopted improved continuous tracking requirements. One reason MH370 remains such a compelling mystery is the silence before disappearance. Cockpit crews are trained to communicate emergency details rapidly, even under extreme pressure. A sudden lack of communication suggests either incapacitation or deliberate suppression. Those who lean toward deliberate diversion cite early flight maneuvers. The aircraft's turns indicate conscious navigation, not uncontrolled drift. Silence afterward suggests that the event transitioned to an unmonitored flight into darkness. If that interpretation is correct, the descent was intentional or inevitable. If the aircraft suffered depressurization and lost cabin oxygen, passengers and crew might have become unconscious without realizing danger. Hypoxia can occur silently and rapidly. An incapacitated crew would not broadcast distress signals. But this partly conflicts with the manual course adjustments before satellite-only tracking. Alternative theories explore possibility of controlled ditching into the ocean. A shallow controlled descent could limit debris breakup, explaining the limited debris field. If the aircraft descended intact, wreckage might rest unobstructed on the seafloor while the surface remained undisturbed. Some analysts also note that recovered debris suggests high-speed impact rather than controlled ditching. But different structural fragments provide incomplete interpretation. Despite decades of technological advancement, the ocean remains vast and largely uncharted. The Indian Ocean floor may conceal MH370 indefinitely. Sonar mapping in the search corridor revealed underwater ridges, ancient volcanoes, and deep ravines that could easily conceal aircraft fragments beyond current reach. MH370 endures as one of the most haunting aviation mysteries ever recorded. Satellite pings, debris trails, ocean drift science, and behavioral modeling produce a coherent narrative. The aircraft flew for hours after losing visibility, exhausted fuel, and descended into ocean darkness. Yet a crucial missing link persists. Why? The disappearance forced international aviation agencies to rethink assumptions about redundancy, cockpit monitoring, radar handoff responsibility, and oceanic flight tracking. The legacy of MH370 reshaped global flight monitoring without solving its origin. One of the most unsettling truths remains. Modern commercial aircraft are engineered to be traceable, communicative, and resilient. And yet a Boeing 777 vanished in clear air without real-time explanation. In an age of satellites, surveillance, and digital data, that should be impossible. And yet it happened. Some mysteries are technical. Some are human. Some occupy the space between. What do you believe happened to MH370? Depressurization, pilot intervention, electrical malfunction, sabotage, or something still beyond understanding?